Coming through okay?
Yes.
All right. Let me close this. How excited are you for race week? Finally here.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel, I think it's so weird like that we're finally back to normal after, I'm sure you had in your profession had a incredibly tough year with managing all your athletes and everything that came with everything. So the good news is the race that shouldn't be too much anxiety. You've done it before. 2018. And for the most part, a pretty straightforward race. There's nothing scary about this after you get out of the water in the chop tank. You never know how the tide's going to be or how to time it. But I think pretty straightforward race. And, we've had a lot of anticipation going into this. So hopefully that's
definitely.
It'll be nice just to get back racing again. But there are some cobwebs that probably will shake out there as we go. So hopefully we can. I want to kind of think through a couple things for you, and hopefully it gives you I don't know, some things that may happen. I'm kind of looking at the forecast, and I've raced there myself before. So it looks like it's raining today through tomorrow. And for example, that transition area, when I was there, it rained a couple days before, and transition was a complete mud pit. I'm talking mud up to your knees. It was terrible. So if we can, avoid things that would, that we can avoid there would definitely be helpful. I think it sounds like they're going to keep you in transition with your bike at your bike rack until the swim. I was looking at the athlete guide. There's a number of swim waves. You swam 35 here last time, so about 35 minutes, and that's been pretty consistent for you somewhere in there. I would be perfectly fine if you get in the mix anywhere from that 30 to 34 minute wave all the way up to that 40 to 44 minute wave. So don't feel pressure to get in that, get in the 30 to 34 minutes, because that's where you think you'll swim. I am perfectly fine with you going one or two waves after that, if that makes sense. Those early waves always have congestion. There's going to be the people that are worried about the cutoffs that jump in there. There's also going to be the people that will swim over you in there. So to avoid that. But the reason that I say I'm okay with the later waves, even though you are going to swim faster, is that on this bike course, a target-rich environment is awesome to have. Meaning that you're going to be able to take up, as they're riding towards you, you're going to be able to take up that free legal draft and then slingshot off of them the entire way. This race course does have the potential for wind, and it can be on either direction. The wind can switch on you throughout the day, so there is a high headwind potential. So if you can take advantage of that legal draft, having 1,000 people, 800 people ahead of you is a good thing. We can take advantage of that legal draft. Roads are flat, smooth. There's no big scary descents that we need to worry about, or anything technical. The biggest hill that you're going to come across is if you run over an ant or something. There's nothing on this course besides the wind for that bike. So that's why I say getting in the water a little bit later is advantageous, because we can take advantage of that free legal draft. So that's a strategy that I use. I'm not a very good swimmer, but that's a strategy that I use as to capitalize on the bike game. So that's just something to think about. But perfectly fine. You have two waves in front of you if you got into that 30 to 34 or that 35 to 39. So anywhere in there would be perfectly fine. So if you want a little less pressure, you want to get a little bit more food in, or whatever it may be, that would be something that I would think about for that. Did you get a check-in time? I assume they're doing that. Did they?
Tomorrow evening. Check in. So I haven't selected my swim time yet.
Okay. So obviously they do have a mandatory bike check. So you're going to be dropping your bike off. You're going to have plenty of time in the morning. The one thing that's a little tough there is getting to transition. I remember I left super early and parked close. I know they have some shuttles and things like that you can take advantage of. Parking kind of near the park there it fills up quick. So all the side roads that are close fill up quick. So, using somebody to drop you off or taking advantage of the shuttle or getting there super. I chose to get there super early, but I think sleep is precious as well. So I'll let you manage that part. But one thing, I am going to share my screen here because I do want to talk about your swim, because the swim course looks like it's going the same direction. I don't know if you saw, the race director posted some great video footage on the swim course at race time. So it was actually, she was in a boat in the morning. She posted it on on the Eagleman 70.3 Facebook page. I shared it to our VIP endurance racing page. I thought it'd be something just to take a peek at. And it is something that I want to point out in your previous swim, just to be on the lookout for. I don't know. I'm not good enough with the title, with the tide charts and everything to know where, what's going to happen. I remember I would track it myself. The big thing is I think it's going to be, I would assume it's going to be wetsuit legal. I know that's the big one. It's kind of, it could be
with it raining. I think it helps. So hopefully,
that's the big one to monitor. But again, a variable that we can't really control. We need to be ready to go either way. So I'm going to pull up. So it was 2010. Bear with me 1 second. I want to get it. So I'm still facing you versus looking on my other screen. You seeing that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this is your swim data from 2018.
Oh.
So we are here looking at now GPS data. When you're wearing your wrist, obviously it's coming in and out of the water. So it may not be perfectly tracked. And some of these undulations that we see in course is expected just from the accuracy of the GPS, meaning that your arm is coming in and out of the water each stroke. It doesn't pick up perfectly, but there's some spots that when I look at it, hey, that could be actually part of the course and we can plan for that. So this section, this big long section, you're going towards down here, you are going towards, there's like a yacht club and a bunch of sailboats that you'll be able to sight off of, and you won't be able to see that for a while at water level. There's limited buoys in here. You're going to hit your first turn buoy right here in this area. So it looks like we may have gotten off course here slightly. And, if you get 50 yards off course, it costs you, it's going to cost you 2 minutes. So you can pick up some time there pretty quickly, just because you're going to come out of the chute, you're going to see your first buoy. And then it looks like after that first buoy, it was probably pretty hard to pick up that second buoy. So I would suspect that may be a spot that's actually true. Probably went off course a little bit, got our bearing again, and then picked up that next buoy. So if you can, and it's really hard because there's not a ton out here, but if you can find something high, it looks like there's like a bunch of trees and then a gap where that marina is. If you can sight off of where those trees are before it cuts down to that marina, that may be something. I don't know. I don't remember what I sighted off of, but that may be something when you're at transition, you can start to look at and try to pick something out. So you have a frame of reference if you lose the buoys and can't find good feet. Your first turn buoy is going to be right here. So it's going to be a red change buoy. You're going to see this here. And now why I think this is accurate is you are going dead into the sun at this point. So I don't know if you remember that, but that could be a blinding spot where we're headed directly into a rising sun. So depending on what time you get in, that could be better or worse. So just be cognizant of that when you hit that change buoy, that all of a sudden you may be going directly into the blaring sun. So I would consider it's a short run because once you go here, what's your good side? Are you your good side or right side breather?
I think mostly. Last night I had trouble doing bilateral in the chop tank. I don't know.
Well, it's the chop tank for a reason. So I don't know which way that current is going to be. It is choppy. And if it's windy out there, you'll get some small breakers. So you may have to go to your bad side. So say we're going down this long section and they're braking on your right side, you may have to go left or the big thing is timing it. So you're at the top of it, top of cresting a wave and taking your breath. So take advantage of those breaths. When your face is down in the water, make sure you're exhaling as much air as you can, so that when your mouth turns into the trough of the water, all you're doing is breathing in air. You don't want to have your mouth out, wasting time blowing air out and back in. So really, or the other thing that happens is we start over rotating. We get a lot of over rotation. It's going to slow us down some, but if it's really choppy, and we got to breathe. So, it is what it is. But if you can time it to the top of the crest of those breakers, and then make sure that you're blowing out your air on the way down, that could be advantageous. But it looks like once we got going back, you'll have the bridge over here. Once we got going back in, it looks like you were to sight off this point, because you're really straight for the most part going in here to that last change buoy and then back in. So those were the two big spots that I wanted to talk about. Was look for that point of reference out over the marina. So when you're looking to the right of the marina, see if that line of trees is something that you can work off of, and then just be cognizant at your first turn buoy. So when you make that first left-hand turn, it could be hot, sun. It looks like you're going to have a partly cloudy day too. So that could be a really nasty sunspot. So just something to look at there. The next thing that I want to do is just kind of work through your power plan. So I'm going to jump to, it's pretty straightforward. When we go here for the bike, I see us for this first 20 miles kind of settling in. The good thing about this is just going to be like riding the trainer. There's not going to be a ton of variability. You're going to be able to, everything that you put into the pedals, you're getting you're getting out. So your normalized power and your average power are going to be really, really tight to each other, because there's really there's not going to be any hills. So you're going to get every ounce of what you put into the pedals out of it. It's not like when you ride, our famous Houston Woods Loop, where you put your normalized powers through the roof and that, but that's what prepares us to make this, this stuff easy. So we're going to kind of settle in for that first 20 miles. My goal for your ride is to set up a great run. You've developed this run prowess, over the years. I'd like to try to exploit that, take advantage of that. So really setting up your run for a great race. So I think that 105 to 120 may feel a little bit easy early on, but it's the first 20 miles of the race. So you will see I stepped that up pretty aggressively into this next miles 20 to 45, and looking at your average power from your previous rides and where you're efficient, I feel kind of the middle of that range is going to be right on for you. So if you look at the target that I have for your flats at 110 to 130, somewhere in that 120, 125 range is, I feel like, your sweet spot where you're super efficient. So I feel like you're really efficient there. I do think I don't want to put out too much power against the headwind, because you're not going to get it back. The juice is not going to be worth the squeeze there. So if you put out 10 or 15 or 20 more watts into a headwind, you're not going to get the speed out of it that you want. It's not going to be, it's just not going to be worth it there. So in that headwind, you just need to be okay with the scenery going by slower. Our miles per hour is going to go down. You're going to be enticed to and want to push your power up to try to keep that same mile per hour, but you just have to be, this is where you need to be consistently persistent. All right. So I would just hold that, and always think, if we're completely wrong and we undershot the bike and you bike too easy, you have a half marathon to make it up.
Right.
So you have a whole half marathon. If I'm completely wrong and you go way too easy, you get a whole half marathon to make it up. But those are when I look at your data, that's where I feel that there's some good numbers. So 105 to 120 for the first 20 miles. And that's just settling. Get on top of your nutrition now. You've now blown through a good portion of your glycogen reserves in your liver and skeletal muscle in that swim. We still have probably about an hour on board that we're going to be able to work with. But this first 20 miles I still like to keep some on board and now start adding to it. So this is a good time to start fueling. The big thing is heat mitigation. All right. You have a ton of sun exposure out there early in the race. It's not going to be too bad later in the bike. It's going to start warming up. So I want you to keep the radiator cool as much as possible. So what I like to think of with that, and I'll go back to a big screen so that you can see, I'm kind of So one of the things I like to do is when I'm heading into an aid station is I want to identify who my volunteer that's going to help me. So I'm pointing, you, water, water, water. So now not only made that volunteer, I promise, that makes now they feel like they have a responsibility to you. They'll do everything in their power to get to you. So that's the other thing. The other thing that I think it does is it's now made you predictable to the people behind you. So pointing, using your voice and being audible, I think is important. So what I do is I take that first water bottle, I drink it to thirst, and then I am dousing my body. All right. I don't like to get too much on my head because I don't like my eye protection, getting, water on it and water spots and all that. But I'm going down the back of my shirt. I'm soaking my jersey. I'm soaking my legs. And that's going to help me stay cool. So I'm drinking to thirst. I'm dousing my body, drinking again, and I discard that bottle. Now, if there's anything else that I need to take at that point, I get it. If I need a gel, if I need a Gatorade, I'm picking that up and I'm usually holstering it. The aid station is about every 15 miles. So you're going to have ample aid station. That first aid station may just be a water stop. You're probably still going to have a full, you're probably going to be pretty full at that point. But now once we get to that second and third aid station, that's going to be where they become more important. You may be holstering some calories. I don't know what you use for your, do you use an arrow bottle or are you just holstering behind the seat?
No, I have 4.
Okay. Okay. So you'll have plenty on board with you to start. So you may just be using that, that water to thirst and for cooling is going to be your biggest benefits, but take advantage of that. Heat,
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Heat will definitely rob you of, of energy for sure. So stay as cool as possible because that run, once we get to that run, man, it is a hot.
It's exposed.
Run. Yeah, it is very exposed. There is no relief anywhere. But that talks, any questions on the bike before we kind of transition to the run or thought process with that?
I remember, I don't remember like what the winds were doing, but last time I did Eagleman, I remember the beginning of the bike. I don't know. I think I maybe like wasted too much energy because I went so fast and like it did not maintain towards the end.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just, I think it's good this time having like different things for me to target to make sure I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's so much different when you're on power, versus just heart rate. We can actually we can hone in. A watt is always a watt, but all heartbeats aren't created equal. So when you go from horizontal to vertical, so you're horizontal in the swim and you go vertical, your heart rate just shoots up through the roof. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you've experienced that wobbly leg, lightheadedness coming out of the water. If that gets really bad, one of the tips I do, I just tell my athletes, put their arms straight up over their head. Just kind of you get pooled bloods all in your chest and up in your arms. If you get your hands up, use gravity to kind of, help you along with that. That helps a little bit in getting that back down to your legs. The other thing is just increasing your kick in that last couple hundred meters. That will help bring some blood into your legs. You'll have a little better legs coming out of the water. So if that's something that you experience, that'll help that. It's hard. Your heart rate's so high coming out of the water. It's hard to run through transition. But I always think that transition is, we can pick up a lot of time. That's free time, but we need to just be smooth and efficient. So, what is it? Smooth is fast, fast is smooth. So we need to just be efficient, not do too many things in there, have our bike set up. And we can get crazy with, okay, I'm going to have my helmets here. I'm going to go sunglasses, latch my helmet. We can get into all of those specifics, but I don't know. At these ultra distance events, I don't think it matters. At an Olympic or a sprint, it definitely does. One thing in transition, if it is super muddy, that brings me up to transition. Back to transition. If it is super muddy, I would consider having your shoes on and running with your shoes on up to the mount line. I don't know if you usually have them clipped into your pedals and you do like a flying mount, but what I wouldn't want is she's like, no, not me. No, thanks. But what I wouldn't want to do is have my shoes on my pedals, run my bike out there and now have my feet full of mud. Because you can have a towel in transition wipe your feet off, and now your feet are clean. So I may even have a water bottle there. So if my feet are super muddy, I can water down my feet, wipe them off with a towel, and put them right into my cycling shoes. I'd rather have muddy cycling shoes than muddy feet inside a cycling shoe for 56 miles, because that's going to turn into a blister that's going to affect your run. So I forgot to, that's what I wanted to mention there when I was talking about the mud, and completely got distracted. But that's one thing that I would do. The other thing is, remember, the mount line is where you can start mounting your bike, but not where you have to mount your bike. I always say, if I get the best footage of an Ironman triathlon is the mount line, because everybody's head is down, people are crashing, falling off their bikes. It's absolutely hysterical to watch.
Yeah.
But what I always say is that's where you can start mounting your bike, not where you have to mount your bike. So what that means is you can run up 50 yards, get to the side, away from people, get on your bike safely, and leave everybody to crash and fall into each other with their head down, trying to clip in down by the mountain line. Run past it. If it's really muddy too, it's going to let you knock some of that mud off of your cycling shoes, so that you can get a really good solid clip in and mount your bike there. So I did want to mention that before, and it completely slipped my mind, but that would be one thing to also think about, especially if it's muddy. The run is pretty straightforward. I have you just on a gradual build. I kept you pretty aggressive. I want to take advantage of how you've been running. So miles 0 to 4, we still need to conserve energy. We still need to process calories. So I need to keep your heart rate low enough that you can still use fat as fuel, and you can still take in carbohydrate and be able to process that adequately. So that's the reason for the first 4 to 8 miles, we're keeping your heart rate somewhat down, because with that respiratory exchange ratio, we know as intensity goes up, we're going to lean towards carbohydrates more. So our ability to use fat as fuel is going to decrease. So we need to keep you so we don't shunt blood from our stomach and lock up our stomach. We still need to be able to process calories in this, at least in the first 8 miles, before we have to gut out a half marathon here on no fuel. So that's never fun. I think the half is way harder than the full, because the intensity is so high and it's such a long duration. So I have you from 0 to 4, we're mid to upper zone 2. From 4 to 8, I have you top of 2 and bottom of zone 3. So if you're going to pass somebody, I'm okay. Creep into top of zone 3. It should start to feel more rhythmical, and you should start. And at that point of the race, you're tired now. You're at mile 8. It's starting to set in that, holy crap, I still got a long ways to go. And I'm starting to tire. And now fueling becomes vital. Mitigating heat becomes vital, and still being able to take in calories every aid station becomes important. The good news is we have every mile, we're going to have an aid station. Heat is going to be a factor that we're going to need to deal with. You've in the past had a nice walk-run strategy. So walking those aid stations, I do think has potential to help you drop your heart rate. That's going to help you process some calories and get some ice on your chest. Being a female, you have this nice ice collector that you're going to have on your chest.
It's the best.
Yep, fill that puppy up. Take advantage of that, and you'll jingle for a little while, but who cares? You're going to stay cool. If you can get any of that ice, if you need to hold it in your hands, I've seen people, I've never done it, but I've heard of people like wearing like nitrile gloves and putting ice under them. I don't know. I think, I don't think we need to go that far, but it's not going to be super hot. It's not going to be the hottest day Eagleman has ever seen, but it's going to be warm. And if there's any humidity, obviously, that's going to, ramp up that heat index a little bit, and you're going to feel it even more and just not be able to dissipate your heat as much. So then we go to 2 mile increments. So 0 to 4 was mid to upper zone 2, 4 to 8 was top of zone 2, bottom of 3. And now we're tempo and better moving forward. So miles 8 to 10, I want you like middle of zone 3. That's going to feel very rhythmical. It's going to be, you're going to have to focus to maintain that. And then 10 to 12, we're at top of zone 3. And that's going to almost feel like, you're really gonna have to push to hang on. And then from there, 12 to the finish, that last mile, we can go all out. I'm trying to keep you out of zone 4 as much as possible. Just because I think our ability to process calories that late in the race is going to be so diminished that I want to make sure that you still have the ability to get calories in and ingest it and not throw a GI issue. Because if we lock up your stomach that late in the race, it's going to slow you down, and you could lose 10 minutes in 1 mile because you had to walk a mile because your stomach backed up. So I'm trying to keep you at an intensity where you can still process calories. I always recommend a blend of calories throughout at the aid station. So getting different carbohydrate sources. The good thing is they have Coke, and they're going to have gels, and they're going to have that Gatorade. So you can get maltodextrin, you can get that pure sucrose. I think the Coke is like nectar of the gods. It hits your legs so quick. If your legs are dead, I always go to the Coke. It seems to bring your legs back. It's really by feel at that point. You're going to know where your legs go, but there are some things to look out for. So if you start seeing that you can't bring your heart rate up, you're probably low on calories. So that's where I would increase your calories. If you see your heart rate start to increase and your pace go down, that's telling me you're starting to get dehydrated. So you need to go to salt, and you need to get on top of your fluid and probably double down on your fluids. And you may need to take 15 or 20 more steps in that aid station coming out the back end, let your heart rate drop a little bit more and let you process those calories. So if you take in a gel and you don't titrate it down and follow it with a chaser of water, well, now your body still needs to process that. So it's going to pull and it's going to pull fluid from your tissues to be able to do that. So then what we see is your blood plasma is also going to go down. So as you get dehydrated, that blood plasma is going to go down. So it's that cardiac output equation. So we're still having the same effort. So our cardiac output demand is the same. And cardiac output is heart rate times stroke volume. And stroke volume is how much is ejected per beat. So when how much is ejected per beat goes down, because our blood's now dehydrated, our heart rate goes up. So that's how you'll notice it. So you'll see heart rate. You're like, man, my heart rate's starting to creep up. I'm about 5 beats per minute higher, but I'm going the same pace. I need to get on top of you're going to have some drift. That's going to be expected. You're going to have cardiac drift, but if you start seeing a decoupling where we see our pace go down and our heart rate go up for no reason, they should be tied to each other. They should correlate linearly to each other. If we start seeing a curvy linear relationship, that's a red flag. Like, I am starting to get dehydrated and I need to fix that now before it becomes a big problem. Because you've seen it where you get people, they go too far, they don't recognize that they're in the fetal position on the side of the race course. You're an experienced person, but I think it's still important to talk through it at a hot race like this. So those are things that I would look at. If you start getting sloshing stomach, you start feeling your stomach start to jingle, you got a lot of fluids in there, I would go to salt. I mean, tell me you probably don't have enough sodium to get that processed. I would start hitting the salt really hard. I don't know if they'll have, I'm not a big fan of it. I've only gone to chicken broth once, and it was on accident. I thought it was Gatorade, and it was chicken broth. Talk about a rude awakening in the middle of an Ironman marathon. That is one thing. But if you can they'll have salt sources. Or do you carry salt on your person? I usually use salt stick capsules.
Yes, I do. I've never used it. I've just had it just in case.
Okay, but, so you have it for emergency. If you start noticing sloshing stomach or getting cramping, I always go to that salt. I feel that our body's always trying to protect ourselves and kind of preserve life as long as possible. So what I always see is, like, it's the weirdest thing. And this is completely anecdotal, but it's happened so many times that there's got to be some truth to it. That I find that if I start cramping and I go and I take salt, just that taste, getting it on my tongue, I feel like your body now knows, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to die of salt depletion. Some salt's now available. We'll let him go, and he's not going to cramp anymore. So it just seems like there's some connection there, right? There's a connection to the mouth and to the brain somewhere in there that allows you to keep going. Anytime that I've had a cramp, I go to it on demand. So and the only other thing I would mention is if your stomach gets locked up for any reason, you're going to have to slow down. Hit the water. You probably took too many calories in too fast. Or your heart rate got too high, you'll have to slow down. It's the toughest thing to do. Try to keep your cadence up, cover ground, but walk. Your heart rate will drop. You keep it down long enough, your stomach's going to start working again. Your legs will come back to you, and you'll start feeling better. You have enough fitness that there's no way that you can't fix it, as long as you just don't completely overheat and ignore all the warning signs. So I call it the dashboard item. So as long as you pay attention to that dashboard, it'll definitely help you along the way. with that. Anything that you want to, any questions with any of that, or thoughts or concerns that you've had in the past that I can try to troubleshoot?
Run, I feel good about. And I don't think it's right now, it doesn't look like the weather's gonna be too bad. The only thing, going back to the swim, some of those like off course lines, I know, especially around buoys, the turns and stuff, I just hate being around everybody. And I feel like the congestion is always so bad around the turns. I don't know if there's any.
Yeah. So if we were going for a world championship slot, or we were trying to something, I would tell you to attack. I would tell you to attack the tangent and cut the buoy as tight as we could. Stay out of the washing machine. So that's why I call it. It's like the washing machine. You got 600 people trying to make the same turn at the same time, and I always just go wide. It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a minute, but it's not going to. Your anxiety is going to stay low. Nobody's going to try to sink you. Nobody's going to get mad at you and come up and punch you, because people do that. I mean, I don't think they get mad. They think you're doing it on purpose, and it wasn't intentional. But there's so many people trying to make that turn as tight as possible. I just go wide. I would just go wide. Stay clear of that. I would go wide enough that you can get a good bearing back on the next turn buoy. That would be something that I would try to do. But besides telling you to just go wide, I don't have any great suggestions. You can get through it pretty quick if you cut right at the buoy and kind of cut that tangent as fast as you can. I can't advise it, especially if you're not if there's already something that's you're going to have to eat that little bit of time difference going around that buoy. It stinks, but it is what it is. One thing I would do is I wouldn't try to loop out. I would try to make your cuts as straight as possible. So if you need to go wide and then get your bearing back to that next buoy, I would try to do that, because that's going to get you on course. If you when you loop around, it'll just kind of keep lingering. You'll just get wider and wider and wider. And then when you come back in, it's going to be wide and wide and wide until you kind of get back on some good feet. If you can find some good feet that'll kind of tow you along right on the outer edge, that would be awesome. So if you can kind of keep on their feet and just follow the bubbles of their feet, that would be awesome. You got that brackish water there too, so you have you do float a little bit better. So besides it being the chop tank and really choppy in a tidal river, that back half after that second turn buoy, that's where I feel the tide affects you the most. You don't have that eddy effect of the marina and the land so close. So after you make that second turn buoy, where we saw that you swam the straightest, that's where I think the tide could affect you the most. And when I swam Eagleman, we went the other direction. I've done that as well. Yeah, so we went the other direction, and that was I got pulled out at that point. So that's where it would affect you if it does. The other thing is, if the tide is out, you may be able to walk a lot longer than you want to. Like you'll see people walk. If it's up to their knees or their waist, there'll be people that'll walk 200 yards. If you can dolphin dive and try to swim, you may hit some sandbars and kind of come up. If your hands start hitting, consider standing up just to make sure you get a bearing again. But it kind of depends on the conditions there. So that's very likely. If the tide is out and your hands start hitting when you're swimming, then consider standing up, see how high it is. And then at least, and if anything, it's going to cost you 1 or 2 seconds, but you'll be able to, if you can stand up and it's at your waist, I'm not telling you to walk, but get back on and start swimming, but you can swim and get your direction. I'd rather waste a second. It's not like you're going in deep water where you have to go to your recovery stroke to sight when you kind of lose course. And that happens to everybody. You kind of lose where you're at and you kind of get disoriented, go to your breaststroke or, whatever it is for your recovery stroke, get your bearing back and then start swimming again. If your hands start hitting, you can stand up and make sure that you're navigating well. I think the 1 or 2 seconds is worth it. And heck, you can even probably dolphin dive and pick that back up pretty quick. So that would be something there. But I don't have any great tips besides you either attack it or you go wide. And for the most part, for most of my age group athletes that have big goals, I say go wide and stay safe. and just keep the anxiety down. There's somewhere where you don't want to start getting the stress level up is in the water. Get your goggles knocked off or something like that. Was it worth it? No, absolutely not. You're going to lose. And that is it can happen so easily there in that washing machine. You're going to have, at most, I don't know, there's probably like 50 or 60 people that hit those turn buoys at the same time. And it's just, is a nasty, nasty area. So, I would just go wide, but try to keep your cuts cut out and then cut back as quick as you can. I think that will help you a little bit versus kind of lingering and get the big banana, the never ending banana can happen too. So, cool. Well, I'm excited. I'll be tracking. The Ironman app's pretty good, but usually I'm hitting refresh every couple minutes. And then we'll let me know how it goes, and we can probably do. I think these talks, I want to do more and more of these. So maybe a post-race talk would definitely be beneficial if you have some things that we want to talk about, and we'll go from there and then talk about whatever's next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good day. Have a great race. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. So that was our talk with Polly. She's going to be doing Eagleman 70.3. So we're excited to see how she does with that. We're going to post it. I'm going to try to actually post this before the race. So if you're an Eagleman listener and you have anything that you want to talk through, I'm happy to do it. Email me at Scott@VIP Endurance Racing. You can follow us on our social media channels on everything. Almost everything's VIP Endurance Racing, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Also, I'm going to try to post this one on YouTube as well. So we could definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll get that there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we will talk again soon.